Welcome to the Virtual Antics, your go-to podcast for digital entrepreneurs, powered by Nandora.org and NG Virtual Assistant. We're here to guide you through every aspect of business, from networking to lead generation and so much more. Get ready to thrive in the virtual world with expert insights and our all-in-one solution, Nandora, where creating a digital business becomes a breeze. Let's dive in and revolutionize your business journey together. Welcome back to the Virtual Antics podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Guzman, and today I have the amazing Lisa Drennon with me, who is the founder of I Date Money. Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
Hey, Natalie, I'm doing fantastic.
So excited that you're here because last week I was on your podcast. I had so much fun that I was like, man, I need you on my podcast now.
Yeah, we had a great time. I got to say, it's one of the best conversations I've had with a guest. So just talking to you is like such ease and flow. And I can't wait till it goes live.
Oh, it feels so good. Thank you so much, Lisa. So obviously your business is called I Date Money. So your business has to do with money, right?
That's right. It's all about the moolah.
That's right. So what do you do? How do you help entrepreneurs, and how did you get started with this?
Well, I've been in finances and insurance since 1987, and I shied away from working with money. I became a certified financial coach in August of 20 because every time I did something, I had to raise the bar. So I started off online, and I just didn't. I kept changing my niche. And then it kept going back to wealth and finances. And every time I met with a client, they'd be like, well, I really need help with my money. And I carried my own debt, so I didn't feel confident or worthy enough to help them with their finances when my back end was a hot mess. So I kept shying away from it. And when I finally worked through the layers, I worked with my money, and I had this wonderful relationship since I was a little girl. I used to have an imaginary money friend, and everywhere I went, I would find $20 bills, which is really cool when you're 7, 8 years old, right? And my grandma was really good with money, and she'd say, okay, 10% goes into savings and 10% you give, and then you could do whatever you want with the 80%. So I always had this chunk of money in this piggy bank, and I'd always want to like give and do things for not really doing anything for myself. So I always had this sense of, I love money, and money and I are best friends, and we're like going to do great things. We're going to travel and see the world together. And, it's just going to keep multiplying. So I fell in love with the concept of I Date Money with my coach's help in November of 21. After going through the thought process of what is up with me and money, why am I so afraid to share my skill set? Like, this is something I'm so passionate about. So she's like, well, you date money, like, I'm like, yeah, I date money. And she's like, there you go. And, it was born, and I became a wealth activator versus a money coach or a financial coach, because there's a concept behind working with money. It's not just about, budgets and, your net profits and all of that. It's really about, how do you feel about money, and how do you feel about the systems that you're using? So I created a customized wealth and design for high achieving, visionary, intuitive women who are achieving 7 figures, but their back end might be a hot mess. A lot of them are focused. I have 7 archetypes for personalities, and one of them is Maverick, the money maker. So a lot of 6, 7-figure earners are like focused on making the money, and they don't have time to deal. They don't want to make another decision, right? So by implementing a clear, clean money system that is streamlined in your entire system in less than it takes you to launch, that's what I'm on a mission to help 1 million women do.
That is amazing, and definitely needed, especially for entrepreneurs. And, I always say, you always need a SOP. You need a standard operating procedure on how you're going to do every single thing in your business. So when you hire someone like yourself to actually do it for you, and that's been a proven and tested work, you save so much time, and money. It's absolutely amazing, because you're not, playing with your money, trying to test out what works and what doesn't work, and taking the time to like look at the data. So to hire someone to actually create a process and system or share theirs with you is invaluable.
Yeah, I found the women who have implemented save so much time and, like you said, money, because they're utilizing expenses for things that they think that they need, and they're actually double paying. Like when I look at someone's expense sheet, I'm like, okay, this is duplicate, and okay, you have this subscription, when was the last time you used it? When we go through all of this. And what's nice is that the SOP is so simple. If the coach wants to pass it off to a teammate, they can. And I like to play with, I love accountants and bookkeepers, but actually one of my clients is an accountant, which I love because people assume that accountants are going to, help you multiply and manage your money, but that's really not their function. Their function is to gather the data, do the analysis, check the taxes and the laws and things like that, and see how is the money working for you and what can you do to lessen your tax responsibility and all of that. They're really not focused on multiplying your money, which is where I come in. So I have this really cool money multiplier system, and I like to call it's the 10-10 plan that makes total sense. When we can allocate every dollar and have a purpose for our money, that's when we're going to start to see it multiply. That's when we're going to start to see it perform, and it gets to be fun. My client, who's the accountant, likes to call it her treasure hunt. We're going on a treasure hunt, and we're going to invest in this. And she gets so excited when her money earns interest. I just love seeing her post. Look at my money just multiplied. We just had, 20 babies.
So much fun. And it's kind of like, when you have an app, like a game app, right? And you see there's like a competition, you're trying to get to that goal. And I feel like that's kind of how finances can be for people when they have really good relationship with it. It's like, oh my gosh, I could get to this thing and I could do it without even trying, because interest kind of takes care of it for y'all. But when you have a really good strategy, your money can make money, and it's really cool and fun to see. And I feel like not enough women entrepreneurs know about this or utilize it. Maybe they do know and they just haven't found the right plan. Do you find like a lot of women have, because I know on your podcast you kind of go over our relationship with money, so do you find that a lot of women have like doubts when it comes to money or anxiety?
So much anxiety, and the general consensus is that they're in this hustle mode. I have to make more money, and as they make more money, their expenses increase. So as their operating expenses increase, they have this drive to make more money. So, Maverick the moneymaker, let's get those multiple income streams coming in, but it really doesn't matter how much you make, it's what you do with it. Because if you're always bringing massive amounts of income, but you're always spending the same amount that you're bringing in, you're going to end up with nothing, and one of my favorite books is The Richest Man in Babylon. I read it in 1992. And just that concept, it's so simple, yet no one does it. Like literally, save 10% right off the bat, throw it in a savings account, as it builds, transfer it over to different types of investments to maximize that. And when I tell people that, they're like, oh, I can't save 10%. I got bills to pay. I got employees to pay. I got this. And no, pay yourself first. This is why. And like, there's a different concept for business expenses, business income, and personal. And I find that a lot of entrepreneurs are combining that together, which is like a big no-no in the financial world. Like, you want to keep it separately. You want to draw a paycheck from your business expenses and transfer it over to your personal account. And then when you apply this strategy of the money multiplier system, you can really see your money grow. So
yeah, that's awesome. And if you guys haven't read that book, it's a must read. Like, I think that was one of the best advice or book recommendations I ever received, was The Richest Man in Babylon. And then, I talked about this on your podcast show, Lisa, but I didn't really tell my viewers this, but I went from a poor kid to the rich kid to the foster kid in a very short amount of time. And my stepfather was a self-made millionaire, and his advice was always, if you got a promotion or you have some sort of extra money coming in, do not spend more than you're already doing. Have a budget, stick with that budget and stay to that. So as you're getting these promotions, as you're getting, I just had some relatives that unfortunately were in a car accident, but they ended up getting like $100,000 from that car accident. And so that I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm like, I hope they're saving it and they're investing it and they're putting it away and they're not spending it. Cause it's almost, we look at that unexpected money as a birthday gift. Like, oh, we want to use it. We want to play with it. We want to spend it on us. We've worked so hard. But just imagine if you just put that away and you let it create more. You are spending it on yourself because you're building your finances. So when you really want something big, you then have that money. Like my stepfather, he lives in a trailer. It costs $30,000. He has a very old car. He buys like $100 in groceries a week, and he doesn't really go anywhere. but he's a millionaire, you know? It's like, but he's like, he goes on these amazing vacations and he has the time of his life. And he recently wanted a new vehicle and he just bought it. I'm so happy for him. And he paid in cash. And so he didn't waste his money on loans. You know, I don't think we sit down and look at our credit cards and our loans and see how much money we're spending. We're just like, oh, that's just a bill. We're just going to pay it. Look at how much money you just lost, you know, with interest, and total it and look at that number. Cause I'm sure that most of us have it. I haven't looked at it recently and I know mine's crazy. So,
and that's a great advice, is to check that out, because so many people are carrying this interest on these credit cards that they're using for their necessary expenses, their rent, right? Their mortgage, whatever, especially entrepreneurs who might have several months of zero income, and, or, you know, real estate brokers or agents who work on commission and they have to wait 6 to 8 weeks after a closing, you know, and there's ups and downs in the season. So they're using these credit cards with these high interest rates. And I'm like, if you just look at your interest rate, like break up with interest, right? But better yet, create money buckets so that you're not in that place. And what I like to say is, like, when you get a windfall from, you know, an insurance settlement, inheritance, or whatever, take 10% out for fun money and then invest the rest and see, you know, because when you can enjoy the money, like if it's all or nothing, we kind of cop an attitude, right? We're just like, oh, money, you know, you're only there for me sometimes. And, you know, you're so stingy and grumpy and you don't want to do anything. So I love that your stepfather has this concept of living where he's comfortable, right? Like, so what happens is, and I've seen this over and over again, is people will, you know, be in that starter home, right? They'll be in that $60,000 home, or, you know, $30,000 trailer, whatever it is that how they want to live. And then as they get more income, they're like, well, I want a bigger house. I want a bigger this. I want a bigger that. And it's like, well, what's the purpose of it? You know, and ironically, we just upgraded. My husband and I retired from our career jobs in 2021 and moved to our dream home at the beach. And we went from a 1,700 square foot house to a 2,400 square foot house. And it's like, well, why do you want a big house? Well, we're at the beach. We want our family to come. You know, it's a beautiful vacation stop. So we're basically on vacation all the time. But we still have, I mean, this is what we worked for over 30 years, right? But we still have the money to enjoy vacations and to go out and do all the things that we love to do. But you can get caught up. Like when you're feeling like you're living on vacation, what do you do on vacation? You go out to eat. You know, you go to a lot of parties. You do a lot of, you know, sightseeing and things like entertainment and things like that. So like if you do that every single day and you're like, okay, I need to slow down here, I need to regroup, like what is my purpose? And that's where the relationship with money comes in, because when you think money is, I mean, we all want to believe that money is coming in all the time in abundance, but when you get to that point where it's just, you know, receiving and you're not giving, there gets to be a block. And I think money gets really ticked off and says, okay, you know, I don't think you've been managing me so good. So we're going to stop hanging out with you. We're going to go over here where we're more appreciated. So having that balance is so important. And that's why I love the money multiplier system. You know, it's very unconventional. A lot of people look at it and they're like, I am not spending 10% on fun money. There is no way that, do you know how much money that is? I mean, 10% of 100,000, just go have fun, do what you want, invest the rest.
That's awesome. I love how you put that too. Now, you mentioned buckets a couple of times. Can you explain for my viewers about what are buckets and how to use them?
Money buckets are one of my favorites. So if you remember the old money envelope system that our great grandparents used to use, I've taken the envelopes and transferred them to buckets or bank accounts. So a few banks offer money buckets now, but back in the day they didn't. So I had a separate bank account for every bucket that I had that matched my envelopes. And for me, that works really well because I wasn't really keen on keeping spreadsheets. So if I had just the bank account with the exact money I was saving for, so I would have a bucket for my household expenses, all the needs, the fixed expenses that were predictable. Then I had my grocery money bucket with my co-pays for medical and things like that. And then, you know, a bucket for vacation, for Christmas, for gifts and things like that. So each bucket had a purpose. And I knew like every January, well, end of December, my husband and I would sit down and we're like, okay, what's a projected income? What's a projected expenses for the next year? And we kind of estimate it with a ballpark and then figure out what's the big thing that we want to do? What's on our bucket list? So if you think about all the cool things you want to do. And so every year we always planned a big vacation. And so we'd allocate money for that so that when it came, it wasn't like, oh, shocker, we have this huge bill. It's, and the main, of course, the emergency fund, you always got to fill up that emergency fund. And I have a little note on my emergency fund that says exactly what it's used for. Because back in my, 20s and 30s, I was like, oh, it's an emergency. I need to go tap into this. Or like when one envelope is empty or one bucket is empty, you're like, oh, I'll just borrow from this bucket over here. No. And that's where the relationship comes in. It's like you can't borrow from Peter to pay Paul. If your money bucket is empty, you have to fill it up with income, not from borrowing from another envelope. And I like to say, when we borrow money, we're borrowing from our future self. So, we're putting our future self into debt every single time we swipe that credit card, we get that loan out. And and some debt is good. We can leverage debt to our advantage, especially when the interest rates are low. But when we're not doing that and we're just impulsively spending because we're trying to fill a void, that's what we really need to look at, is like, what's going on there? What's the purpose of this? And why am I not utilizing the money? For myself, I ended up racking up $100,000 worth of debt because even though I had the money, I wasn't paying attention. I had no clue. I was putting it away. My husband would be like, come on, let's look at this. Look at your investments. And I'm like, no, it's too far into the future. I can't touch it. I don't care. And I didn't pay attention. And when I actually did pay attention and I went and did the work, I was like, wow, I had over $2 million. I had $100,000 worth of debt, but I had no clue I had $2 million. And it's like, wow, my money has really been multiplying. Like, cool. And just think, if I would have paid attention, how much more it would have multiplied just by paying attention to it. This is just ignoring it, right? So I always think back, and where there's no mistakes, there's just experiences. And I look back at younger Lisa and I'm like, see, if you would have taken your husband's advice and checked your money, you would have had more to work with. Not that $2 million is not anything to, not appreciate. I mean, I love it, but I just think, I'm always raising the bar. Like, how can we do better? How can we maximize this investment? What else can we look at to really see? Because my goal is to leave this beautiful legacy to the 7th generation.
That's amazing. And I think you're definitely on your way. And so if you guys haven't listened to it, I do recommend listening to Lisa's podcast, the I Date Money podcast. Is absolutely amazing. And you'll definitely get to hear from, maybe other women entrepreneurs like you and their stories. So she can definitely help. So how can our listeners find you, Lisa?
idatemoney.com.
Woohoo! So easy. I love it. Awesome. So I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. And I just thank you so much for coming on the show, Lisa. I've had a blast.
Yeah. Thank you, Natalie.
Have a great day, guys.